Welcome to Congress in Context, your guide to navigating the complexities and sometimes the chaos of Capitol Hill.
Glad you could join us.
Today we're taking a deep dive into the legislative whirlwind of September 9, 2025. It was a busy one.
It really was quite a packed day. You had the House and Senate grappling with everything from, national defense to the future of digital currency.
Lots going on.
Yeah, full of legislative action, some pretty important debates, and statements that, frankly, continue to shape our nation's path.
So our mission today, as always, is to try and cut through some of that noise, connect the dots for you.
Right, and give you the most important insights, really help you feel genuinely informed about what actually happened on the Hill that day.
We've got a stack of sources, ready floor debates, committee actions, key proposals. We're going to unpack the big bills, the heated discussions.
And those underlying dynamics, that drive policy decisions. Hopefully you'll have some real aha moments as we explore what these actions might mean for you, your community, and, well, the country.
Okay, let's dive in. One of the biggest pieces dominating the floor was, predictably, the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. On September 9th, the House was deep into H.R. 3838. That's also called the Streamlining Procurement for Effective Execution and Delivery Act. The SPEED Act.
That's the one. The NDAA is always this colossal annual undertaking, right? And this year's version, the FY26 NDAA, felt particularly significant.
How so?
Well, coming out of committee, it was actually described as a very bipartisan product.
Which you don't always hear, especially these days.
Exactly. A rare feat, really.
Yeah.
And the stated aim was, ensuring our armed forces stay the best in the world.
So, a bipartisan product. What
Yeah.
are those key areas of consensus?
Yeah.
Especially for service members and families. That's usually a focus.
It absolutely was. A major highlight and definitely a bipartisan win is that 3.8% pay raise for all service members.
Okay.
But it wasn't just pay. The bill makes some pretty tangible improvements to quality of life. We're talking better military housing, improvements to DoD schools,
Right.
expanded access to health care and child care, for instance. It specifically authorizes $350 million for new childcare facilities for military families.
That's significant.
It is. And another $35 million for what's called impact aid. That goes to communities that support our service members. It even pushes back against downsizing certain military healthcare spots. Kind of a holistic approach.
So more than just a pay bump. It sounds like a comprehensive effort.
Right.
What about the strategic side? Deterring adversaries. Where's the focus there?
Yeah, the FY26 NDAA is very sharply focused on countering threats from China. That's front and center.
Unsurprisingly.
Right. Also bolstering Taiwan's defense, strengthening alliances with Indo-Pacific partners, and of course it continues efforts against Russia, North Korea, Iran, and foreign terrorist groups.
Okay.
One representative even offered this rather colorful image talking about stopping drug dealers riding around the oceans with pangas full of dope.
Okay. So a broad range of threats.
Exactly. Highlights the breadth of what they consider national security concerns.
Now, let's get into that SPEED Act part. H.R. 3838. It sounds like cutting red tape. How does it actually streamline procurement?
Well, the core idea is pretty simple. Drastically cut down the time it takes to get new stuff, new capabilities to the warfighters.
Because it takes ages now, right?
It can take, agonizingly long, sometimes up to 10 years, which means, solutions can be outdated before they even get fielded.
Not ideal.
Not at all. So this bill aims to slash those requirements' decisioned timelines. Think 3 years down to maybe 3 months.
Wow.
It also tries to make these things called other transaction authorities, or OTAs.
Okay, what are those?
They're basically a special type of flexible contract designed to speed up prototyping, R&D, outside the traditional slower acquisition rules. This bill wants to make them more accessible.
Got it. Less bureaucracy.
That's the goal. Eliminate red tape, cut duplicate reporting. And it backs this up with money. A massive $142.6 billion authorized for research, development, testing, and evaluation.
Focusing on
The cutting edge. Things like hypersonics, AI, autonomous vehicles, really pushing innovation.
Okay, huge push for innovation. But even with the bipartisan label, there must have been some friction. Any specific criticisms or amendments that caused a stir?
Oh, absolutely. Despite the general agreement, some dissenting voices argued pretty strongly that the bill falls short in some crucial areas.
Like what?
Specifically, they mentioned a lack of meaningful policy to rein in the Trump administration's reckless and illegal actions. That was the direct quote.
Oversight concerns.
Exactly. One representative complained that proposed amendments will ruin what we have done collectively on our committee, and felt they were all silenced, basically alleging a refusal by the majority to perform meaningful oversight.
Any examples cited?
Yes, and they were pretty charged examples, things like Dr. Phil allegedly being sent on an ICE raid.
Wait, Dr. Phil.
That was the claim mentioned on the floor. Also, reported abuse in a prison in El Salvador, and even an alleged extrajudicial execution by the U.S. military of 11 men on a speedboat in international waters, with talk of a disturbing video posted online.
Okay, those are serious allegations.
Very serious, and they really underscore this deep tension, right, between the bill's overall bipartisan aims and these persistent, sharp partisan battles over oversight and accountability.
Right. Speaking of controversial actions, let's shift gears slightly. Another significant bill up was H.R. 3486, the Stop Illegal Entry Act of 2025.
Yes, this one's focused squarely on immigration enforcement. The idea is to give federal officials stronger tools to prosecute individuals who illegally enter the U.S.
What's the rationale given?
Well, proponents argue that the current punishments often aren't enough of a deterrent. They cite figures like over 70% of individuals the bill uses the term aliens charged with illegal reentry in 2023 had prior criminal records. So the stated intent is boosting deterrence and enforcement capacity.
But this didn't sail through without debate, I imagine. Immigration is always contentious.
Definitely not. The debate brought up sharp counterarguments, claims of uncertainty as to the facts involved here, and some pretty strong criticism directed at ICE, immigration, and customs enforcement.
Such as?
Accusations that the agency has a reputation for lawlessness, for breaking the laws of this country, for recklessness, for showing shock and awe, for unnecessarily brutal and violent confrontations, and for lying about it. That's quite a charge.
Wow. Yes.
There was a direct call to get to the bottom of this, particularly around conflicting reports about the legal status of some Korean nationals who were detained. It just highlights that deep, deep ideological divide over how immigration laws should be enforced and agency accountability.
Okay. And sticking with legislation, we also saw a proposal looking towards the future of finance, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act.
Right. CBDC meaning central bank digital currency?
This sounds like pushback against a government digital dollar.
That's exactly what it is. This proposal, Title LI, Sections 5101, 5102, aims to flat-out prohibit Federal Reserve banks from offering financial products directly to individuals.
Okay.
And crucially, from directly issuing a central bank digital currency.
Why the opposition?
It's a clear marker of this growing ideological battle. It taps into really deep-seated concerns, especially among privacy advocates and certain conservative groups.
Concerns about what specifically?
About the potential for government overreach. The fear is that a direct government digital currency could give the state, unprecedented visibility into and maybe even control over individual financial transactions.
The surveillance issue.
Fundamentally, yes. A fear that it could really alter economic freedom and the basic relationship between citizens and the state. It's much bigger than just finance. It's about autonomy.
Interesting. Okay, shifting from specific bills now to the broader atmosphere on the Hill. The interactions themselves often reveal a lot. We heard members honoring local heroes. Right?
We did. Those moments often get lost, but they happen.
Oh.
Mrs. McBride from Delaware recognizing Lieutenant David Moyer and Trooper Brian Nieto with Medals of Valor, congratulating Robbie Stevens, the new fire chief in Luz.
It's a reminder there's a local connection.
Exactly. It grounds the national policy debates. But, stepping back, the broader political landscape, particularly over in the Senate, showed some pretty stark partisan divides, especially around confirming presidential nominees.
Ah, yes, the nominations backlog. That seems like a constant struggle. What's the latest dynamic there?
Well, there's significant frustration being voiced, particularly by Republicans, senators claiming unprecedented obstruction by Democrats.
What's the specific allegation?
They're alleging a deliberate strategy to filibuster the executive calendar, basically using procedural tactics to slow walk or block votes on nominees.
Do they have evidence for that?
They point to historical trends. They say President Obama got 90% of his nominees approved without needing a formal roll call vote. President Trump, that dropped to 65%, and President Biden even lower, around 57%.
A downward trend.
Yeah, and some are calling it a slow-moving disaster 25 years in the making, tracing the escalation back to the contested 2000 election. It really shows how deep these procedural battles have become.
So what's the upshot? How might this affect how the Senate actually works?
Well, Republicans are openly talking about deploying the so-called nuclear option,
Which means?
changing Senate rules, likely with a simple majority vote, to make the confirmation process easier and faster for certain nominees. They're framing it, interestingly, as a restoration option.
Restoration. Meaning?
Meaning, they argue, returning the Senate to how it used to function before these levels of obstruction became common. Their argument is the president deserves deference on nominees, especially largely uncontroversial ones,
And they see the current situation as?
as essentially a protest of an election that didn't go their way. We even saw a specific procedural move. A point of order was successfully made against 2 nominations, claiming they were not properly reported.
What does that mean? Not properly reported.
It usually signals some kind of procedural defect. Maybe
Right.
they didn't go through the committee process correctly or lacked required paperwork before hitting the floor. It's another tool in this intense procedural warfare.
Got it. We also saw a specific debate flare up around military buying choices and energy policy. That seems like an interesting intersection.
It was. Mr. Petronas from Florida proposed an amendment. He wanted to get rid of a general ban on the military buying regular gas-powered vehicles.
Why?
His argument was that lithium-ion battery vehicles, electric vehicles, are basically not ready for prime time for tough military use.
Okay, and the opposition.
Came from Mr. Beyer of Virginia. He argued the current law actually doesn't hurt readiness or raise costs, and he added, it supports base resilience by diversifying energy sources.
So a perfect little snapshot of the bigger energy debate.
Exactly, a microcosm playing out within the defense bill.
And beyond the floor debates, the general rhetoric on the Hill seemed pretty polarized too, reflecting those larger national arguments.
Oh, absolutely. You heard really strong opposing statements on major issues.
Like immigration again.
Yes. One senator was praising the Trump administration's border actions, claiming statistically 0 illegal flow at one point, citing 359,000 arrests in 7 months, and emphasizing that 70% supposedly had criminal records. Then sharply criticizing Democrats for, quote, protesting the removal of murderers, sex offenders, drug traffickers.
And on the other side, any counterpoints?
Well, not directly on that, but reflecting other divides. One senator defended RFK Jr.'s stance on public health, calling for more research into long-term vaccine effects and criticizing, quote, woke bureaucrats at the CDC.
Right.
While yet another senator attacked former President Trump for calling the Epstein Files investigation a Democratic hoax. So you see these really stark, polarized viewpoints clashing, often using very strong language. It reflects the national mood, I suppose.
Definitely reflects the divisions. Let's try to put some of this in a wider context now. Amidst all this, there was a powerful reminder about 9/11 that day.
There was a very sobering reminder. One speaker highlighted the tragic fact that more people have died from 9/11-related illnesses than were killed on that one awful day.
Wow, still.
Emphasizing the moral duty to ensure healthcare for survivors, first responders still getting diagnosed with cancers, respiratory diseases, autoimmune disorders linked to the attacks and the aftermath. It's a reminder of those long-term national promises that go beyond the day-to-day political fights.
Absolutely. And the NDAA itself, we should remember, has this incredibly long bipartisan history, almost a tradition.
It really does. This year marks the 65th consecutive year Congress has passed an NDAA. 65 years.
That's remarkable continuity.
It underscores its institutional importance. You know, the process involves multiple committees. We saw letters from House Administration and Ways and Means committees actually waiving their rights to review parts of the bill just to speed it up. It shows Congress can collaborate on essential stuff, even when they disagree deeply on other things.
And it's important to connect these big D.C. debates back to individuals and communities. How does something like the NDAA actually touch people's lives?
Well, think about it directly. Those military families getting a pay raise or finally having access to better childcare on base, communities near military installations getting that impact aid to help with schools or infrastructure.
Right.
Or on the innovation side, we heard about Ohio's 13th Congressional District. They have this Akron Sustainable Polymers Tech Hub. It's a whole local ecosystem, universities, companies, workforce training geared towards defense innovation.
And Congress is noticing that.
Yes, an amendment specifically urged the DoD to work more closely with these designated tech hubs. It shows that direct line, from local expertise right up to national security strategy and potentially local economic benefits too.
Were there other, maybe less obvious impacts discussed within the NDAA? sort of in the weeds?
Oh, yeah, plenty. Provisions dealing with the quality of privatized military housing, which has been a big issue, mold remediations specifically mentioned, even a feasibility study on using cloud laboratories for defense research, very 21st century, and attention to modernizing facilities, like a pilot program for unspecified minor military construction projects using additive manufacturing technology.
Additive manufacturing, like 3D printing.
Essentially, yeah, 3D printing for construction on military bases. So it's this mix of big strategy and really granular practical details.
Which raises the crucial question of the defense industrial base, the companies that build all this stuff, and the supply chains. That's a huge focus now, isn't it?
A paramount focus. Absolutely critical. The NDAA includes major efforts to improve what they call supply chain illumination.
Illumination, meaning transparency.
Exactly. Knowing exactly where all the parts and materials come from. Also, setting minimum standards for contractors. And crucially, reducing reliance on foreign adversaries, specifically named are China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea for critical components.
Like what kind of components?
Things like advanced batteries, shipping containers, certain specialized metal products, stuff we absolutely need. There's even a new bio-industrial commercialization program aimed at boosting domestic manufacturing of critical biomanufactured products.
So this isn't just about defense readiness anymore.
No, it's deeply tied to economic resilience. Fostering domestic industry, trying to secure those supply chains, it could genuinely reshape global trade patterns if pursued aggressively.
We also saw some discussions that tapped into broader social issues, cultural debates, even historical moments.
We did. For instance, there was language creating a prohibition on use of federal funds to endorse critical race theory. The bill defined that as the theory that individuals bear collective guilt based on race or origin for past actions.
Reflecting the ongoing culture wars.
Directly. You also saw positive support measures, like a call to extend the Military One Source program that provides resources for veterans and their families, and changes to programs supporting military children with severe disabilities. So support after service is still a focus.
Any other notable items?
Well, there was discussion around a bill authorizing the death penalty for the rape of a child under military law, the UCMJ. And almost as a background hum, President Trump had just signed, on September 8th, the continuation of the national emergency related to terrorism that's been in place since 9/11. So current actions constantly build on past decisions and declarations.
Okay, pulling this all together, what does it mean for the road ahead? What trends or consequences should we and our listeners be watching?
Well, first, that continued strong focus on the NDAA signals an unwavering commitment to military modernization, especially competition with, near-peer adversaries like China and Russia. That's not going away.
And the political infighting, the nomination battles.
That suggests, unfortunately, probably heightened political tensions ahead. Potential procedural shifts in the Senate, like that nuclear option talk, could really change how future laws get passed and appointments get confirmed. Expect continued friction, intense debate. It feels like a sign of a deeply divided government struggling to function.
What about the longer-term impact of all this talk about procurement reform and supply chains?
That push for domestic sourcing and supply chain resilience, that's likely to drive serious investment in U.S. manufacturing and advanced tech.
Which could be good for the economy?
It could. It could potentially revolutionize some industries, definitely reduce national security vulnerabilities. But it's not simple. It means navigating really complex global trade relationships and figuring out how to secure those critical minerals, lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, graphite that you need for batteries and other tech. It's a huge strategic shift with massive economic ripples.
So for listeners wanting to stay on top of this, how can they stay engaged and informed?
Well, first, remember, you can actually read these bills yourself.
Yes.
HR 3838, HR 3486, they're all available on congress.gov.
It's the official site.
Yep, congress.gov. It's an invaluable resource, totally free. You can track legislation, see committee actions, look up roll call votes. It's where we get a lot of our primary source material for these deep dives.
And if people want to weigh in, make their voice heard.
Contact your representatives directly. Simple as that. Their contact info is right there on their official congressional websites. And knowing the specifics, like what we've talked about today, the bill numbers, the key debates, makes your call or email much more impactful. It shows you're informed.
Any specific things coming up soon that relate back to September 9th?
Definitely keep an eye on the Senate. They're scheduled to continue debating their version of the NDAA, S-2296 starting September 10th.
Okay.
Also, watch for any en-bloc amendments in the House for H.R. 3838. That's when they bundle less controversial amendments together for a single vote to save time.
Right.
And longer term, those studies they commissioned on things like drone electronic warfare, mold in housing, Air Force readiness, the reports from those will eventually offer insights into whether these policies are actually working.
This has really painted a picture of just how multifaceted Congress is. Global strategy 1 minute, local community support the next, then deep dives into procurement rules and personal autonomy debates.
It really is all interconnected. And it underscores, I think, that civic engagement goes beyond just voting. Understanding these details, holding representatives accountable for their votes and statements, that's a crucial and frankly necessary part of making democracy work.
So let me ask you, the listener, what stands out to you from today's deep dive? As we wrap up, maybe consider this. Those debates we heard on September 9th, military funding, immigration rules, how the Senate operates, digital privacy, they weren't just abstract arguments floating around D.C.
No, they were direct expressions of power, of competing values, of national priorities being hammered out.
And they shape not just our defense posture, but the very fabric of American life, for better or worse.
And the challenge for all of us as citizens trying to stay informed is not just to recognize those forces at play, but to critically assess the evidence, the arguments, the implications for ourselves. Always question the narratives, always seek that deeper understanding.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on Congress in Context for another deep dive into the workings of our democracy. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep being well informed.